You know Airbnb. Well, today I read that Airbnb says that they will ban hosts from using indoor security cameras in their rental accommodation. The platform says the change will take effect by the end of next month. But what? How long has Airbnb been allowing indoor security cameras in their rental accommodation? That seems unacceptable to me. What about to you? Is it acceptable for any hotel, any short-term accommodation, any long-term rental to have internal security cameras installed to track your private business? What do you think? 1300 222 702 is the number, or you can text 0467 922 702. Katina Michael is a professor in the School for the Future of Innovation in Society with the Arizona State University, and she joins us now on evenings. Hello, Katina.
Hello.
Is it acceptable to have indoor security cameras? I mean, it is their place, but when they're renting it out to other people?
A lot of hosts talk about protecting their investment, but in actual fact, there's a trade-off between security and privacy here. The privacy of guests is of utmost importance, so it's unacceptable where there is an expectation of privacy in accommodation to have pinhole cameras or other types of IoT devices listening, watching, and collecting data.
But clearly this has been happening, or Airbnb wouldn't have come out this week to say they've decided to ban hosts from doing so.
It has been happening. Just in 2017, we know there were more than 1,000 complaints lodged with Airbnb about guests feeling unsafe and what they termed unacceptable conditions. Mostly it was the hidden cameras that they were speaking about. And I know many of our listeners would have been to different types of accommodation through this service, this sharing economy platform, that have been privy to cameras. I mean, the first thing I do with my children when we travel is we go around the apartment and literally turn every IoT device on its head and try to switch off the devices knowing that they're there. But now it's been mandated, I think, through customer feedback and through post-COVID responses from guests that this is unacceptable behaviour, even when it's disclosed. So we've had this issue proliferate where some of the listings have been overt. You know, we have cameras in this location and that hasn't previously been banned, where there's disclosure to the guest. But increasingly, we've also found covert surveillance devices such as pinhole cameras watching people, even whole families. And what we're saying now through this new policy change at Airbnb is that we're listening to consumers, we're listening to guests. We want people to feel safe. We want their well-being to be of utmost importance. And even cameras in outdoor areas like saunas or outdoor showers have also been banned.
I see. So that's what's happening at Airbnb. What about other short-term accommodation sites or even hotels for that matter?
Well, in hotels, we've had that expectation of privacy ongoingly. Walkways and shared spaces have obviously been under surveillance for the longest of times. But in rooms, we have heard about situations where guests have found cameras, and this is in the privacy of a hotel room, where people don't want to be watched. They're there on the short term, but they also don't want to be surveilled. During COVID, a lot of people reported that they didn't want their location disclosed just in case it was going to be misused. But now with technology proliferating throughout, whether it's short-term accommodation, people do like the ability to be able not to have human-to-human contact, to rock up to a place, use facial recognition to unlock the smart door, and then go about their business interacting with the space. It seems seamless, it's frictionless. And so we want the ease of convenience of entering a premise, but we also don't want our privacy abused and data misused.
Mm-hmm. And when you say that Airbnb hosts and the like say the reason for using this surveillance, these indoor security cameras, is for protection of their property, do you believe that? Is that the only reason they would have them?
I think a lot of people have been subject as hosts to having their premises absolutely trashed during a big weekend, and perhaps even parties being corroborated, post 12 a.m. I mean, that's everyone's host's nightmare, I guess. Neighbours complaining, police being called in, and the house or the apartment actually being completely downtrodden. But there are ways and mechanisms to overcome that. We have law enforcement, and we also have bonds and money that could be reclaimed in case of accident or damage. But when we hear that decibel devices are being used not just to perhaps listen to the decibel levels and see that report, but also record conversation, record details. And our Internet of Things devices increasingly have that capability, whether it's a Nest device or a doorbell or anything else. We have this ability now to record transactions like audio or images or video. And that's when it gets a little bit creepy. But again, one of the things that we find with the sharing economy is that policymakers have been slow to respond. And while there are things in Europe, for example, like the General Data Protection Regulation, in many places there are no regulations. And this is just another policy change by many platform providers, such as Airbnb, keeping up with the times. So yes, we have these new technologies that can enhance our security, but we also have an expectation of privacy, and our guests have rights. And so this sharing economy is now changing to serve the needs and listening to multi-stakeholder feedback.
Yeah, about time. Katina Michael is here, professor in the School for the Future of Innovation in Society at the Arizona State University. My producer, Tash, says that she had a friend who was fined by Airbnb because the owners found out that there were more people than what they had said were going to be at the premise, entering and staying. Because of the internal cameras, they were able to actually track the number of people that entered the Airbnb site. Do you think that's reasonable?
I think an expectation by hosts and other platform providers to keep with the rules is reasonable, even at accommodation such as apartment that is being leased to individuals and households. That they will come down at you if you have done the wrong thing, if you've broken the rules. But you know that the rules are there and shouldn't be broken. It's when we don't know what our rights are as consumers or what we can and cannot do if that's imposed without prior warning. So in the past, Airbnb on the platform has requested that hosts identify where the location of the cameras are. I can guarantee you that has not always happened. And so it's okay for one side in this very complex relationship, which is really emergent. This sharing economy, this gig economy is really new as a intermediation capability in business. And we're just now beginning to perhaps mature in the early phases to navigate through these, your side, my rights, your rights, our rights. And what we're looking more towards is a co-creative space where we say, actually, we're in this together. The whole idea of this notion of a sharing economy is that we're in this together and we make up the rules together. It's not just the platform provider dictating X or Y, but we need clear regulations, clear policies to be made available to consumers so they know what their rights are. And so it's very hard for me to judge on the example you provided, but if we know what the rules are, we should try and abide by them. I'm not sure about using covert ways to find out whether someone is breaking the rules or not, because then, both parties are breaking the rules. One, knowing what's available and what shouldn't be done, and the other going, well, I'll use covert surveillance devices to bust you. And so I think it's not a win-win, it's a lose-lose in that situation.
So Airbnb has said that come 30th of April, right across the world, they are based in San Francisco, but they're an operation that operates right across the world. From the 30th of April, that under the new laws, you are not allowed to have indoor security cameras, but you are allowed to have doorbell cameras, noise decibel monitors in common spaces as long as the location and presence of the devices are disclosed. But you aren't allowed to have indoor cameras in places that would breach the privacy of the people renting your accommodation.
I think that's fair, and it's an empowerment to both the hosts and the customers, that is the guests, but also the housekeepers who go and actually make up the rooms back to, the way they were prior to being rented out, and also the platform provider on an equal level. So here we're seeing this equalization, this notion that we're all in this together, we're all stakeholders in this deal, and even though it's emergent, all of us have rights, and I think that's healthy and a positive way to go. We shouldn't forget that many of these platform providers lost billions of dollars during COVID. They have bounced back. They are making money again, but they're also learning something important, that feedback from different stakeholder types is critical.
The Airbnb statement goes on to say if a host is found to violate these new policies against indoor surveillance cameras, they will risk losing their Airbnb account. Do you think Airbnb will be so tough on hosts in this way, Katina?
I think they'll have to. You can't create policies that are not enforced. And I think early on there will be some examples made to create a chilling effect for the rest of the hosts. But, no one can ever point the finger at a covert device that's, can't be searched and found. So if no one finds it, well, it's the host's secret. But again, we will have these repercussions of follow-up events, and I think enforcement is a requirement, and even penalties may be a requirement. It's not enough to say that the host has broken the rules and they'll be coming off the platform. Other action needs to be taken, because this is beyond policy of Airbnb. This is now in some jurisdictions like the European Union got to do with regulation, which has penalties and fines.
Katina Michael, do you think other short-term accommodation sites and even long-term rentals will follow suit with this policy that Airbnb is now introducing?
I think so. I think I take a positive outlook here. If we want consumers and guests to trust in services, have their human rights upheld, ensure their social rights are not infringed, I think we're all moving in that way, and there's a common understanding that it's not us versus them. If we truly are believing in the sharing economy notion, then it's everyone's responsibility to do the right thing, including guests and hosts and the platform provider, among other things like policy and government regulation.
Katina Michael, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Katina Michael is Professor in the School for the Future of Innovation in Society at Arizona State University. You're with Renee Krosh. This is Evenings.